The Bengals just hosted a familiar face from the AFC North, Montravius Adams. Yes, you heard that right. The veteran defensive tackle paid a visit to Cincinnati, raising questions about potential depth moves on the defensive line. While there's no official word yet on a deal, it's clear that Cincinnati is doing its due diligence in the trenches. Meanwhile, Trey Hendrickson continues to dominate the headlines. We've got new insight into what might have gone down behind the scenes, including a reported contract offer that didn't quite hit the mark. This info comes via James Rappian, who spoke with Mike Florio of NBC Sports. According to Florio, the Bengals' offer wasn't enough to satisfy Hendrickson's camp, possibly opening the door to more trade speculation. And speaking of that, trade rumors around Hendrickson are heating up again. ESPN's latest report suggests there are still internal conversations happening about his future in Cincinnati. Whether that results in a move or a recommitment, it's going to be one of the biggest stories to track heading into training camp. This is just the beginning. Plenty more to cover as the offseason unfolds. So stay locked in. You're not going to want to miss what's next. Montravius Adams, a name Bengals fans should keep an eye on. The veteran defensive tackle, most recently with the Pittsburgh Steelers, visited Cincinnati for a meeting with the team's front office. Now, don't let the Steelers' background throw you off. This wouldn't be the first time Cincinnati tapped into that pipeline. Mike Hilton, one of the Bengals' most productive defenders, made the same move from Pittsburgh, and that worked out just fine. But this possible addition runs deeper than a division crossover. Adams has a history with Bengals defensive line coach Jerry Montgomery. The two worked together in Green Bay during Adams's early NFL days. That familiarity could play a big role if Cincinnati decides to bring him in. So, where does he fit? The Bengals' interior defensive line is talented, but thin. BJ Hill and TJ Slayton anchor the front, but behind them, it's youth and inexperience. Chris Jenkins Jr., McKinley Jackson, Howard Cross III, all promising, but all still growing into their roles. That's where a veteran like Adams could step in. At 29 years old, with stints in Green Bay, New Orleans, New England, and Pittsburgh, he brings a journeyman's edge, a solid rotational piece who knows how to be a pro. As of late Monday afternoon, no offer has been made, but the door remains open. Now let's circle back to what's becoming the biggest offseason storyline in Cincinnati, Trey Hendrickson. New developments around his contract situation and trade speculation are starting to gain traction again, and what happened over the weekend might have slipped under the radar. Let's talk about the contract drama surrounding Trey Hendrickson and why it just got even more interesting. Over the weekend, Mike Florio of NBC Sports dropped a key detail that's worth your full attention. According to Florio, the Bengals did make Hendrickson an offer. And while that may sound promising at first glance, the numbers, and more importantly, the structure, didn't sit well with Hendrickson's camp. Here's where things get real. Hendrickson is set to make $16 million this season, but Cincinnati reportedly offered a new deal in the range of $28 million per year. That's a big number, but context matters. Florio emphasized that Hendrickson wants more security. The cash might be decent, but the guaranteed money and long-term structure weren't enough to get a deal done. Now, Trey Hendrickson faces three tough options. Take the Bengals' current offer, even if it falls short of expectations. Play out this season, then hit free agency in 2026, assuming the team doesn't franchise tag him. Hold out and risk alienating the franchise while betting they'll sweeten the deal. So, why is this a problem for Cincinnati? Take a look around the league. Myles Garrett is pulling in $40 million per year. Danielle Hunter's new deal tops $35 million annually. If Hendrickson views himself in that class, and his production over the past few years gives him a strong case, then a $28 million figure, even if accurate, lands short of market value. This puts the Bengals in a tough spot. They want to reward one of their best defensive players, but they also want to stay true to a disciplined cap philosophy. Meanwhile, TJ Watt's number could be due for a jump soon, further raising the bar for top-tier edge rushers. Bottom line, this contract standoff is far from over, and it's quietly becoming one of the most important storylines in Cincinnati's offseason. Trey Hendrickson knows his value, and that's where this entire standoff begins. He's looking at the numbers: 17.5 sacks over the past 2 seasons, production that stacks up or even outshines several edge rushers making more money than he is. Naturally, he's frustrated. But here's the real conflict. It's not just about the number per year. It's about the guarantees. Cincinnati is known for being extremely cautious when it comes to guaranteed money, especially beyond year one. In fact, the team has only broken that rule for 3 players: Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. That's the elite core. That's the exception. Now the question, is Trey Hendrickson worth becoming a 4th exception? So far, it doesn't seem like the Bengals think so, and age matters here. Burrow, Higgins, and Chase were all 26 when their deals were inked. Hendrickson is already 30, guaranteeing him serious money into his age 31, 32, 33 seasons. That's not how the Bengals usually operate, and that's exactly what's making the situation so tense. So what happens now? Hendrickson appears ready to stand firm, possibly holding out until a new deal is on the table. Meanwhile, Cincinnati is just as known for digging in and not blinking first. It's a game of leverage and patience, and both sides are playing it hard. Does Hendrickson finally cave and say, "I'll play out the year and test free agency later"? Or do the Bengals eventually shift and make the kind of offer that includes long-term security? Either way, this is a storyline that's far from over, and the next move will tell us a lot about both the player and the front office. Let's be real, Trey Hendrickson's frustration is understandable, but so is Cincinnati's position. Sure, $28 million per year isn't top 5 edge rusher money, but it's $12 million more than what he's currently owed. That's a significant bump, especially when you factor in the team's history of being careful, very careful, with 2nd and 3rd year guarantees. And yes, the sack totals are impressive. No one's denying that. But zoom out for a second. Is Hendrickson a force against the run? Not particularly. Has this Bengals defense been dominant with him in the lineup? Not really. Even with his presence, the unit has struggled for consistency in critical moments. That's the heart of the dilemma. He's valuable, but does his impact justify a contract structure the front office typically avoids, especially with younger defensive stars emerging and cap flexibility being a long-term priority? Here's where it gets more complicated. ESPN's Matt Bowen recently weighed in with an interesting twist, a potential exit door. He believes if Cincinnati and Hendrickson can't work out a deal, Green Bay might be a logical landing spot. Pairing Hendrickson with Rashan Gary in a retooled Packers defense under Jeff Hafley, from a scheme perspective, it checks out, especially since 2023 first-rounder Lucas Van Ness is still developing, and Green Bay could use a proven pass rusher to stabilize the edge. So while Cincinnati holds firm and Hendrickson digs in, the clock ticks. There's pressure on both sides, and outside teams are watching closely. Whether the Bengals push this toward resolution or decide to make a move remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, the standoff is no longer just about numbers. It's about trust, leverage, legacy, and what kind of defense Cincinnati wants to build in 2025 and beyond. We recently dropped a video highlighting the top trade destinations for Trey Hendrickson if a deal were to happen. Green Bay was definitely on that list, and honestly, my opinion hasn't shifted much. Could a trade have gone down before the 2025 NFL Draft? Absolutely. But Cincinnati made it clear they want to keep Hendrickson around because he's a real asset, and they believe they locked in a solid contract. Sure, some fans say the Bengals are cheap for not paying him more, but from the front office perspective, that $16 million contract they locked him into was a savvy move. Hendrickson has clearly outperformed that deal. Now, does he deserve a raise? Absolutely. But the Bengals got him on a favorable contract, and that gives them leverage. As for moving him post-draft, it's unlikely. If the Bengals do decide to trade Hendrickson, they won't settle for future draft picks. They want someone who can contribute immediately, a starter to fill that edge rusher role right now. If you're giving up a player who was runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year, you better get solid value in return. Names like Lucas Van Ness from Green Bay come up as potential fits. Bottom line, Cincinnati holds all the cards. Hendrickson will either accept their offer, play out his current deal, or risk the franchise tag, which could get messy. My advice? Signing the deal makes the most sense. We're talking big money either way, but what exactly is he holding out for? A few million more? A better guarantee? With the Bengals known for limited guarantees, that's probably the real sticking point. The clock is ticking for Hendrickson to decide. But if you ask me, a trade feels unlikely. The Bengals want him here. Meanwhile, Green Bay remains a logical alternative if things fall apart,